Hello and welcome to the 36 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1 Baseball podcast. This is the weekend preview, week 7. I'm your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. As always, tonight's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. We are really appreciative of our friends at S2 Cognition. And, you know, they emphasize decisions. And I got to tell you, that we made a great decision to invite Stephen Schoch to the podcast tonight, to invite the great Shotgun Spratling tonight. KR is in the house like furniture, as always. Gentlemen, let's start here. Stephen, you are wearing your gorgeous hat that says college baseball is rad. It's kind of the trucker style hat. It's amazing. Where is it available for the general public, or is this for trained professionals only at this point?
Right now, trained professionals, but hopefully by next week it'll be available on bigdonkeybrand.com, I think, is the name.
Nice.
As long as the domain's not taken. Otherwise, there might be a really weird brand out there that just got some random traffic.
Nice.
But yeah.
I'm not sure I want to Google that. Big Donkey Brand.
Yeah, just make sure safe search is on. You know, it's just easier that way.
Shoddy, I don't know if you follow Steven on Twitter. One of my favorite Twitter interactions of 2023 was when some random fan named Bill came at Steven saying, Big Donkey 47 is a dumb Twitter handle. And instead of Steven getting in a urinating contest with this gentleman, he decided to turn it and say, okay, Twitter, what should my Twitter handle be? And there was so many great parts. Steven's wife, Fran, had maybe the tweet of the year. But the best suggestion was, now remember, his current handle is at Big Donkey 47. And the stupid fan was named Bill. And somebody put Steven's new Twitter handle should be at Bill Sucks 47, which I thought was absolutely the winner. So there you go.
That is hopefully a great handle suggestion.
Yes.
Of course I follow Steven. I mean, he's one of the best college baseball follows in all the land, not only for the highlights and everything, but the humor and everything else. We're loving what he's bringing to college baseball and to D1 baseball as well.
Agreed.
By the way, we have two. Well, actually, I'm the only person here that's not a former college baseball player.
How about that?
I was talking to Blake.
Pitchers and a worthless utility player.
So I was talking to Blake Beaverson at Chinook Cedar the other day. Great guy, by the way. I mean, he's like, hey, I know somebody who played baseball with Shotgun in college. And I was like, wait, I had totally forgotten Shotgun played college baseball. Where was that at, Shotty?
Maryville College. And just outside of Knoxville here, East Tennessee. You know, obviously a lot of eyes on Knoxville the last couple of years. If you just go down the road a little bit, Maryville College is doing pretty well right now. The Scots have gotten off to a pretty good start to the season.
Did y'all have fur coats when y'all hit home runs at Maryville College?
We did not. However, we had a terrible playing surface, especially the outfield. So we had we called our place the home field Scotland Yard because we were the Scots. So we had a Scotland Yard dance for every time an outfielder booted a ball because they would come charging in. You don't do or dies at Scotland Yard. You play it body up. You body up in the outfield, because you never know where the ball was going to bounce. So every time one would get away from an opposing team, we would have a Scotland Yard dance, but no fur coats there.
Shoddy, did you know that Pat Murphy, his first coaching job was at Maryville College?
The illustrious Pat Murphy. It was his best stop, actually. I don't know if you know that, Ronnie. He's always said that, I believe. I can't quote him on that one, but I'm pretty sure he said that it was his favorite spot he's ever been.
Oh, that's so great. So great. Shoddy, were you a sidewinder too? Did you drop?
Indeed.
Did you change? Were you a low slot joker just like Steven?
Hey, there's a reason why when I'm able to do the podcast, it's called the sidearm delivery. You know.
That's right. Oh my gosh, Kendall. No one is throwing from a normal arm slot tonight. That is the best.
Shoddy, have you ever pitched in a important game with a blown out UCL like someone else here?
I have both of my UCLs intact. I've actually acquired a third one just in case, down the road I might need one. Okay. So I acquired an extra one on the black market. So yeah, I've got.
Well, that's why you had 2 kids, right? Because you can just take one of their UCLs if you need it.
There you go.
Something like that.
By the way, on potentially a more serious note, before we get to some of these series, I didn't realize this, But Mississippi State, after losing tonight to South Carolina, has now lost 18 straight SEC games. Like, how in the hell is that even possible?
I bet you the second longest streak is probably like 11 or 12 or like 10
It's
or like
they're 0-7. It's the worst start in school history in the SEC.
it's
So
crazy.
that's like over 100 years of baseball.
They won a national title 20 months ago. I mean, that's just nuts.
I think that
Crazy.
tells you, the era we're in college baseball and how quickly things can change for you, whether it be for the positive or the negative, with the transfer portal in and out, with how quickly, can you, with NIL, how quickly you can reinforce your roster, or you can have dysfunction and different things. It's just a lot of moving parts in college baseball right now. And, some teams are excelling with it and others are struggling to find their way. And I think you see how quickly things can turn around, especially in the SEC with the quality of play there week in and week out.
No room for error. Yeah, it's crazy. Hey, boys, before we jump into the 10 series we're going to talk about, we have a new sponsor, Blast Baseball. Hitters, if you're ready to dominate at the plate, Blast Baseball is trusted by more MLB and college teams than any other hitting solution. The Blast sensor attaches to the knob of any bat, providing real-time feedback with every swing. Go to blastmotion.com, enter the code D1Baseball at checkout, and you will save $10. So thanks to our friends at Blast Baseball. All right, boys, let's do this. So here's what we're going to do. We picked 10 series. I'm in 9th place. Shadi, you're kind of down in the rankings where I am also. It's not going great for our squadrons. We're going to talk about our 10 series. So, Steven, you're going to go first. We'll go around the horn, and you get to nominate the first series we're going to talk about. Where would you like to start, Coach Shock?
So I would love to start in Blacksburg, Virginia. Believe it or not,
I'm totally shocked that I looked at the list and was like, "Oh, shocking."
I was thinking, should I wait and save it because everybody knows I'm going to pick it, or should I just play it safe in case Kendall was like, you know what, I'll take it then. But I'm excited for it just because, regardless of how the season is going for either of these two teams, this weekend kind of transcends the whole season because you're really playing for who's the best ACC team in Virginia. Even if, Virginia Tech has a worse record, if they win this series against Virginia, it's going to be assumed it's like, oh, they're the dominant team in Virginia. They're the team we need to be worried about, just because that's kind of the value that is placed on the Commonwealth Clash. And I just think it's going to be a really good matchup. Virginia Tech's kind of been waiting for the wheels to click, I would say. They had a kind of rocky up and down weekend against Pitt last weekend, but Virginia's just it's been really smooth sailing, which, that's when things get worrisome for me because I'm a believer things can't go too well. Something's always got to even out. But what I really liked out of them is over last weekend on Friday's game against Florida State, Nick Parker gets knocked out early and then Chase Hungate steps up right when the team needed him. And, that's when teams I feel are the most dangerous, when it's not, we got to wait for this guy to step up. It's just going to be who's stepping up. And they always have someone there who's ready to fill in when need be. And I really think that's going to be shown this weekend.
I love it. That position player group is crazy. Shadi, you and Joe Healy, Kendall, I want to tip my hat to Joe Healy right now. Okay. Joe Healy was on Virginia Tech in the preseason first, and I bought in because the position player group is pretty special, but boy, have they struggled on the mound. Joe Healy and Shadi, you and Joe, Jose Healy, are the only two of us that picked Virginia Tech this weekend. So please, Shadi, the floor is yours. Defend yourself.
I did it purposely just to go at Shock for one. But obviously got to be a contrarian to anyone on the staff. But also, I was in Blacksburg multiple times last year, and to feel the environment there, their whole mantra last year was to bring baseball back. That's something that John Sheff said he was going to do when he, first got to Virginia Tech, and I really felt like that was the case last year. And they were in a super regional against Oklahoma with a chance to go to the College World Series. I was a little surprised, actually, that they didn't. But, you run into Cade Horton and you run into a couple of arms there that didn't work out. But the thing that that's trending upward for Virginia Tech in my mind is they're starting pitching has struggled. However, last week against Pitt, Drew Hackenberg gets to the 7th inning. His stat line doesn't look great. 6 2/3, 5 earned runs. He had a couple come at the very end. He had 3 in the first inning, so he had 5 frames really nice in between. Griffin Green was his best. He's basically been all season. And then Anthony Argelis, 5 2/3, I believe it was, 2 earned runs. So their starting pitching was good last week. I think that's a positive sign. Even though they lost the series to Pitt, I think that's a big thing. And I feel like they're desperate right now. I think they have to be desperate because you look at, what is ahead of them on the ACC schedule, and if they don't make some moves right now, they're going to be, they're not going to be able to build on what they did last year. And, they did obviously lose a lot of pieces last year, but you want to keep building. And I think desperation mode, rivalry weekend, I think you got to come with your best. And the fact that the starting pitching was good last week, that's why I decided that Virginia Tech was my pick this week.
Love it. Kendall, you had a strong opinion on this one?
Not really. I keep picking as Virginia, and they keep winning. So now I'm going to pick for them. I think that, in all honesty, though, like my quick take on Virginia would be this: I think we would all agree coming into the season, the starting pitching was kind of the question mark, right? Like you look at the starting pitching on paper, you're like, it's a decent group, but it's not a group that you expect to dominate ACC lineups, and yet Nick Parker and Brian Edgington have done a really, really nice job. So until their starting pitching shows me that they can't shut down good offensive teams like they've done so far, I'll continue to believe in them. So they've been way better than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I would say my 2 quick thoughts on this. Virginia might have the best position player group in the country if you include defensive ability. They're so athletic. I mean, they really can win any kind of game. And then, Connolly Early, who's the Army transfer, who was really good at Army, he's been dominating in midweek games for Virginia. So you don't want to ever lose a Nick Parker, and we're thinking of Nick Parker. But, hey, they've got, in theory, a plug-and-play guy. We'll see what it looks like on the weekend. But rivalry series, anything can happen.
Yeah, I do agree with Shotty's point that this is kind of I think Virginia Tech's gonna have some urgency. They're behind the A ball a little bit, and
no doubt.
What better way to get caught up a little bit than taking a series from your rival?
Yep, that's it. By the way, we are the LSU Tennessee game 2-1 LSU, 2 outs. Yeah, we're going to the 7th. So 2-1. We're going to the top of the 7th. Shotty, what's the second series you want to do here?
I mean, why don't we just start there? I mean, this is the biggest series of the weekend. Everyone's going to be talking about it. We're talking about it in the middle of recording this. But, it's the team that dominated the SEC last year versus the team that seems to be dominating everything this year with LSU. So, I actually picked Tennessee to be my team to win it all this year. I thought they would have that, hey, we didn't get it done last year. The next year afterwards, the more, maybe the less talented team, but becomes the more successful team. Thinking back to kind of the UCLA, Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, didn't get it done. The next year is when they win it all. So, that's the team I had win it all. But I also had Paul Skeens as my pitcher of the year. So, I picked LSU this week because, they're the home team. Alex Box is rocking. And how can you pick against LSU until someone actually beats them in a series? I mean, that's how I kind of feel about them. That's how I felt about Tennessee last year. And until Notre Dame finally did it, I wasn't going to pick anyone against them with how much talent and how successful they were playing. I feel like, that's LSU this season. The transfers they brought in have made that team, feels like indestructible. And, the one thing that I was curious about going into the season, the one thing they struggled with mightily last year was the defense. And the defense, the games I've been able to watch them, has been much improved. And, when you have the arms they have with the bats they have, and now you're playing a little defense, that's kind of the recipe that you look for a College World Series champion.
Yep. Steven, what do you like here? You went with LSU, right?
Yeah, I went with LSU. And while we're talking about LSU defense, how about that Trey Morgan catch earlier? That was quite impressive.
He's such a good defender. Goodness.
Especially against those bullpen benches at LSU are literally like rock solid wood. Yeah, that's actually been a big complaint from teams over the years. Like, it's extremely dangerous to have hard wood like that out there.
Yeah, I remember it was like Jack Bell, I think it was, who tore his ACL by just running into that bench last year. So
yeah. Exactly. It's great call.
Someone replied to my tweet with that. So that's the only reason I knew that. Shout out to whoever replied that. But I did remember that happening. But nice. I just love that Trey Morgan, he was like the best defensive first baseman I've seen in college baseball in a long time. And now he's just like, well, the team needs me to play left field, I'm going to go play left field, and he's doing a great job with it. And just there's such a complete team top to bottom, and it's hard to pick against LSU. It really is hard.
No doubt. Kendall, did you even consider Tennessee here, or you were just very convicted on LSU?
I consider Tennessee, but I just think when you look at LSU, I think the big differentiator for me is I think as you get to deep in the series finale of this 3-game set, I just like LSU's ability to get some big hits against Tennessee's bullpen, because I think Drew Beam can give Tennessee 4 or 5 innings in the final game, maybe 6. But I like how LSU's lineup stacks up against Tennessee's bullpen. I actually got a chance to kind of see some of their arms out of the pen over the last weekend against A&M in the series finale, and I like LSU's chances. But I think Tennessee wins the middle game of this series. I mean, they got a shot to win this one, 2-1 to 7.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah, Skeens has been ridiculous, like 20+ pitches over 100 miles an hour. For the one thing for LSU, outside of Garrett Edwards, I don't think I love the bullpen. Christian Little has really struggled recently. I do love, who's my lefty? Riley Cooper, but he's kind of like in the witness protection program lately.
Yeah, Ackenhausen's a pretty good arm too, though. Like he's up to 91, 92 from the left side with a nice little breaking ball.
No, he came out of a game like something, but it was not arm, Kendall?
Yeah, he's back now.
He is back. Okay.
Yeah, he's actually Mikey Motic was saying he's actually in the bullpen right now, warming up. So yeah, that's good news for LSU.
It's nitpicking. It's I'm nitpicking, but I'm deep in the standings, so I got to zig when other people are zagging. So I got the balls, and we need a comeback win here this evening.
I would like to point out real quick, Runes, that I petitioned the D1 Baseball editors to let me go to Colorado Springs last year to see Paul Skeens in Air Force, but somehow that didn't pass the money side of the financial side. Did not let me. It wouldn't let me expense that trip, so couldn't make it out to see him. Now I guess there was some foresight there that maybe Paul Skeens might end up in a bigger place.
Yeah,
a little bit more accessible. I knew, Martha knew it the whole time. Last April that Skeens was going to LSU. So
well way ahead of us. By the way, Mark S is in our chat window here, and he says during the LSU game ? Really ? I appreciate that, although Mark, you are kind of contradicting your own point right there.
Yeah, Mark's here watching us. Come on, dude.
But the key, Mark, is, and I think you're doing the same thing. I've got my phone right here in the window with the game on, and then I've got my laptop screen. So like we're in a multi-device world, Steven, right? Like we can do this.
Look, if you can't multitask by now, I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we even doing? Yeah, let's go. All right, boys. So Kendall, you give us a third series. What's the third one you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll go with Texas and Oklahoma State. I think when you look at that series overall, I mean, I think the biggest thing about Texas is, do I think Texas is a great team right now? Like, not even close. But what I think Texas is a team that knows who they are. And that's really important in college baseball. They know they don't have the big boppers they had last year, Murphy Staley and Ivan Melendez. But what they've done offensively is, if you look back at the A&M game on Tuesday, and they've kind of done this over the last couple of weeks, they're executing the smaller things well. Like Jared Thomas against A&M the other night drops down a perfect bunt. They execute the hit and run. Like they have an identity. Like they know who they are as an offense, and I think that's extremely important. Peyton Powell's been really good for them. I just think when you look at the series overall, I think Oklahoma State's a rough matchup for them. I just think Oklahoma State's one of those teams that, A&M is not a great offensive team right now. Oklahoma State is a great offensive team, and they're one of those clubs that against what I would consider an average Texas weekend rotation, they're going to score runs on anybody. And I just think I don't think Texas offense is designed to kind of go, tit for tat against an kind of a high octane offense like OSU. So I like Oklahoma State in this series, but Texas most certainly has my attention. I was really impressed with their level of play. They flat out dominated A&M on Tuesday.
Yeah, and coming off that weekend at Texas with Texas, Texas looks good right now. Steven, what say you on this one?
I love Oklahoma State. Obviously, it's hard for me not to like a guy like Rock Riggio. First of all,
so great.
Phenomenal name, great baseball player.
Even better dog name, Steven. Do you know his dog's name?
No.
Ruffles.
What other analysts are going to know names like Mike Rooney knows names? That's impressive.
That's
Ruffles Riggio is a great name.
Great
but
dog name.
Just they bring the juice, they bring the energy, and I'm all for that. And then, of course, you got Nolan McLean, who does it on both sides of the ball. He's been pitching great this year, which that excites me too. So can't not pick him.
Yeah. It feels like home field advantage in the Big 12 is a big deal right now. Shotty, did you go Cowboys too?
I went with Oklahoma State, but it's hard not to. I was surprised that no one picked Texas. I mean, 15 straight wins, and you see in this game, this series might be decided by the SoCal guys. Obviously, as a SoCal transplant now being forced to move out. I keep up with all the SoCal guys. Lucas Gordon has been pitching great, former USC commit. He's pitching to a former USC catcher in Garrett Guillemette, and those both that battery has been really good this season. But on the other side, Oklahoma State, led by Jerron Watts-Brown, who's been fantastic for them, basically, since that first start of the season. So, I think Oklahoma State, with the firepower of the offense, I think is the difference there, led by one of the guys there, Rock Riggio, another SoCal guy.
Yep. Yeah, if I could get comfortable with one of the pitching staffs in the Big 12, I think I could fall in love with one of those teams, but I'm not ready to sink my teeth into any of those pitching staffs yet. So, by the way, Paul Skeens is throwing alien sliders right now, 86 to 88, and it's traveling absolutely sideways. All right, so let me pick a series here. Give me Oregon at Arizona. Do you know what, boys? I literally stared at this one for like 3 minutes. Like, I could not decide between Oregon and Arizona. I love Oregon's offense. I'm scared about their pitching. Arizona has really played poorly over the last several weeks. Like they get swept by UCLA, they get swept by Arizona State. But Arizona's better than that. Like, this is a talented roster. I picked Arizona because if I were to critique myself, I've been really laying into these road dogs, and hence hello 9th place. So we're going to go with the home team. I got no analysis other than home team. Kendall, who do you like here?
I think I'll keep this one short. I just really like what Oregon's done offensively over the last couple of weeks. I get that Arizona can match people offensively, but they've actually got some pretty good starts over the last couple of weeks as well for the Ducks. So I like Mark Wasikowski's team in this series.
Steven, who'd you go with here?
I went with Oregon. I strictly went with what happened last week, and Oregon they swept, I believe, Northwestern State in a 4-game series, which is not easy to do. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's more impressive than a regular sweep. And I just feel like that's going to give them a lot of momentum coming into the next weekend.
Very good. Shotty, where did you go with here?
Oh, with Arizona, similar to you, Rooney, I've got to stick with the home teams right now at this stretch to try to gain some games. I'm right on the heels of Big Donkey to get out of last place. That's the big thing. Just get out of last place. I don't want to be last.
Pick them off one person at a time, Shotty. That's the way to first place.
I'm still thoroughly surprised I'm not in last. So
you're welcome.
It's been a good run.
But the thing with Arizona is their struggles recently have all been on the road. So I think getting back home is big for them. Obviously they play well in that park. It's a unique park compared to, how the rest of the Pac-12 plays, especially with those, the jet stream alleys that they have there and the way they know to play. But the big key to me is, how does TJ Nichols pitch? If they get him on track, Arizona is a team that can compete with anybody in the Pac-12. If he's not on track, then you're fighting an uphill battle every single weekend. He's got the talent. He showed that at the very beginning of the season with that opening day start, but he's got to get it locked in for them to be a contender in the Pac-12.
Yep. It's funny. His numbers are exactly the same as they always are, but although I would say his walks are down, and batting average against is actually down, but scouts seem to be really pleased with what they've seen from him. So, he's very, very talented, but it's a tough place to pitch. Steven, give us a fifth series. Who do you want to talk about here?
I would like to talk about Dallas Baptist and Louisiana Tech.
Love it.
Specifically, Dallas Baptist, the team I chose to win it, just because in their midweek this week, they beat number 13 Oklahoma State, and I just sat here and told you guys how good I think Oklahoma State is. So I feel like it would kind of contradict myself, and I don't want to do that. I want to be clear about where I stand, and I think Dallas Baptist is a great baseball team. So that's why I think they're going to come away with this series, but also just their whole lineup is a power threat. 1 through 9, there's not a single guy who hasn't hit a home run for them, and I just think that's going to come into play here somewhere. I'm not certain where, if it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But between these two teams, I do expect at least one absolute bloodbath, just home run fest of a game.
Love it. Kendall, who'd you pick here?
I went DBU. I just really like the job that Ryan Johnson and guys like Braxton Bragg have done in that weekend rotation for DBU. It's kind of interesting. Dan Huebner's kind of a wizard. I mean, when I talked to him in the fall for my fall report, he's like, man, I don't know what I think about this team. Like, I think we could be good, but I don't think we could be great. And all of a sudden, you look at DBU, and it's like wash, rinse, repeat. Like, everything's kind of clicking for them. They've kind of stabilized the weekend rotation. They've got nice arms in the bullpen. They're doing what they need to do offensively. So I just think that those front two guys at the front of that rotation give them a little bit of advantage. Although Jonathan Pinter's a really, older and really accomplished pitcher for, La Tech, I still like DBU this weekend. But it's going to be a good series.
Shotty, what'd you go with here?
Going with the home team again, even though Louisiana Tech has struggled. They're in desperation mode right now. I think they're 13-12 on the season. And this is the part of the season where you start looking at, oh no, this could be the season for us if we don't turn things around now. Almost halfway, basically halfway. It's like you got to turn things on right now or it's over. So those type of teams, when you get a home team and an opportunity to boost your resume, those are the series that I look at where you've got that extra motivation going in. DBU coming off of a big win over Oklahoma State. Do you have the same motivation, or are you resting on your laurels? I'm going for the underdogs here with La Tech and what they need to get done this weekend.
Yep, I'm with you. I went DBU, and I think those are all good points. Louisiana Tech's kind of like Arizona and some of the other teams, Virginia Tech, where they got to start to draw a line in the sand here. Like, it's getting a little late in the game, and Conference USA is. It looks very competitive from top to bottom. So,
yeah.
Shotty, who are you liking for our next series? Who do you want to talk about here?
I'm going to go West Virginia, Kansas State. I allowed myself to have one away team winning this week, and it's going to be West Virginia. And that's because I'm in love with Blaine Traxel. He's thrown 4 complete games the last 5 weeks.
The best.
Let me say that again. He's thrown 4 complete games the last 5 weeks. The one non-complete game, he went 8 innings. So,
awesome.
I don't know what was wrong with him that weekend. But CSUN transfer, another guy from SoCal, making his way out into the bigger world of college baseball and, getting the exposure of the Big 12. But he's been so good for them this season. He's been fantastic. He's been the anchor they need in the middle on Saturday to let them use whoever they want on Fridays, whoever they want to use on Sundays from the bullpen. He just gives them that ability because he just eats up so many innings for them. And I was really impressed with that group. I saw them in the fall against Maryland. I saw them at the very beginning of the season against Maryland. And, even the strides they made from the fall to the spring, I think it's a group that can win the Big 12. I know they're not the most talented team. I think that's Oklahoma State. But I think they're a group that, everyone kind of knows their role from what I've seen. J.J. Weatherholt has been fantastic for them. And if they get Grant Hussey going the way he's capable of going, I think they become even more dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Steven, what do you think about Blaine Traxel?
Shotgun just took the words directly out of my mouth.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Hey, we're all sidewinders here. We love a sidewinder.
He is.
He just looks like a Steven Schott kind of guy.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's like we teleported to the 1901 and was like, oh, this is what a college baseball player looks like. Let's bring him to 2023 and show the world what he's about.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of 4 complete games in one season is a wild number.
Sure is.
And we're barely almost halfway through, and he's already got 4 of them. That is ridiculous. And like Shotgun said, it saves so many arms in the bullpen when only one kid has to throw on Saturday. And I think that's such an advantage to a school, and I'm excited to see how they capitalize on it.
Yep. I love it. By the way, boys, the saying when he pitches, you know what they say, right? They say, "Get off the blacks." No, get off the tracks. A Blaine is coming. It's so great. Everything about the whole operation is great. Kendall, I think West Virginia can win the Big 12. I'm gonna just say that, and I'm gonna drop my mic right now.
I think they can too. I agree with Shoddy. I think when you look at Traxel and you look at Ben Hampton in the front of that rotation, like a really accomplished arm. With that said, Shotgun made me really bad about made me feel really bad about picking Kansas State. I went with Kansas State at home. It's one of those weird places I feel like sometimes for teams. Oklahoma got swept up there. They do have a really good frontline guy in Owen Barema. But I just think Kansas State with Cash Ridgely and Nick Goodwin and those guys, I think they find a way to win this series at home. But I really like West Virginia's club. I hate picking against them. I just have I kind of have a strange feeling about this one.
Yeah, the Big 12 is very hard to pin down this year, but that also makes it very, very fun. So I love that you mentioned Ben Hampton, KR. Like he's having a great year. Just Traxel's, kind of getting a lot of attention, and as he should. And then JJ Weatherholt, who's a member of the fabulous Rune Dogs, is dominating.
Top second baseman in college baseball in the D1 Baseball Power Rankings today.
Hey, you just get guys in our player development system, and we know what happens. Kendall,
the Steven Shock Academy.
That's right. That's right. Steven works with our hitters secretly. We don't tell anybody. KR, pick a series. Pick the series, the seventh series.
I'm going to go with the big series that somehow is no longer a big series, and that's Ole Miss at A&M. You talk about two teams that we thought were going to be really good that all of a sudden are in like a must-win situation the third week of conference play, and it's the Aggies and the Rebels. I mean, A&M was a top 5 team preseason. Ole Miss is a top 5 team preseason. Ole Miss has a little bit more of an excuse. Nobody has an excuse to be 0-6 in the conference. But, I mean, they did lose Hunter Elliott, their Omaha hero, to an injury. He's supposed to be back in a few weeks. But, they've had an excuse from that standpoint. But their pitching just has not been very good, even, in his absence. Like, it just hasn't been very good across the board. You look at A&M, they're 1-5 after, 2 weekends of conference play. And really, I feel like both teams are in a must-win situation. But I think when you look at the Aggies going back home 2 out of the first 3 weekends, you've got to get a series win here because, if you have 2 home series in 3 weeks and you don't win either of them, like you're way behind the 8 ball. So this is a really interesting series in the sense that I think there's going to be a ton of urgency from both teams. I do like A&M. I just, I believe in that staff. I think they'll do enough on the mound. They're bringing Justin Lincoln up to the Saturday role. I think Nathan Detmer, after back-to-back rough starts, I think he finally puts one together. And, let's not forget they did get Brett Minnitt back on Tuesday. He was just okay against the Longhorns. But they're finally starting to get healthy from a position standpoint. I think that matters.
I gotta do some research on Brett Minnick because I feel like he gets talked about a lot. I just don't. All those A&M position players blend together for me, like Boast, Werner, Minnick. They all feel Targach. Yeah. They feel like physical, like football-looking guys who can swing it a little bit.
Targach is really the X factor. I mean, you're talking about a guy that I think he led the SEC in RBIs last year, and I think he's hitting like 125 right now, and that's killed them.
Yep, Steven, I have a pitching question for you. Can you imagine pitching for Ole Miss in this case, and now you've got a pitch timer to deal with, and you've just walked 2 guys, and you've got a pitch timer bearing down on you and the fans yelling, ball 9, ball 10. How's that going to go for guys?
I think it could be pretty difficult. I think before playing there, I would watch the clip of Pedro Martinez talking about how when he pitched in Yankee Stadium, they would sing or chant, "Who's your daddy?" and how he used it to motivate himself.
Oh, I like that.
I would find a way to maybe do that and then hope I don't throw 8 straight balls.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the pitch timer in this instance is it would go by pretty quick.
That's true. Yeah, that's right. The pitch timer is your friend there because you're already. I like that. Shoddy and Steven, feel free to chime in too. Any strong opinions on this one?
I think that I got to see Ole Miss in the finale at Vanderbilt, and they just haven't been competitive the last 2 weekends. Like that's the biggest thing. A&M at least was competitive at Tennessee, and obviously playing LSU and Tennessee, that's a tough way to start any SEC schedule. Speaking of which, Tennessee just tied the game 2-2 in the top of the 8th there. But I think that's the difference maker for me. Texas A&M has been competitive. Ole Miss hasn't. And I think the Hunter Elliott injury has caught up with them. So getting him back in a couple weeks will be huge for them.
Yep. Steven, you have a favorite a player that when I say Ole Miss or A&M, any players jump out at you?
A&M wise, Jack Moss and Ryan Targash, because
Moss is awesome.
Last year, Targash was so good, and it just hasn't really clicked for him. And sure, he's not hitting great right now. He's still got 17 RBIs, so he's finding a way to get things done. It's just a matter of making the hits fall and turning those maybe sac flies into base hits instead. But I think once things start clicking for him, he's the type of player where it's just gonna, when it rains, it pours sort of thing, where he's just gonna go off. So I don't know. I'm gonna pick Texas A&M until that weekend comes, because I know it's gonna be a really cool weekend.
I love it. You know what's funny? Ole Miss last year. So Ole Miss is 0-6, and last year through 9 games they were 4-5. It actually wasn't going awful yet for Ole Miss, despite getting run off the field by Tennessee, and then it really got ugly. But very interesting. Two very I mean, you nailed it, Kendall. Like there's a reason these teams were ranked so high. Their position player groups are very intimidating. Just hasn't come together for them. You picked that one, Kendall, right? So I'll do the Beavs at Washington. So I picked Washington. I was super tempted to pick the Beavs. I like Oregon State's team, but man, the offense is so young that, when you have a true freshman like Gavin Turley, who's basically hitting in the middle of your order, it's a compliment to the kid, but it's also very scary. And their offense just has not clicked. So I picked Washington. They're good. It's Washington's. It's not a deep roster, but they win. So give me the Huskies. Kendall, you picked the Huskies, correct? You have to. That's your team.
I did. Oregon State has kind of been their nemesis over the last, decade. And it kind of goes back to the Pat Casey era, obviously. But I just think when you look at Washington, I think, again, we kind of mentioned this with Texas earlier, they kind of know who they are. I think JK and I think Washington knows kind of who they are. This is a team, when you look at the front of the rotation with, Kiefer Lord. And, by the way, I'd love to see Kiefer Lord doing really well, because he's one of those guys that in the fall, like, the scouts were like, oh, man, this guy's going to be really good. And, like, JK was kind of like, yeah, he's a little bit raw, but, yeah, we really like him a lot. And so it's really cool to see him kind of turn into that guy that the scouts saw in the fall. And then you look at Stu Fleslin in the number 2 role for them. He's done a really, really nice job too. So you've got 2 bona fide dudes on the front of the rotation. And, oh, by the way, with Guerrero and other guys, you got a pretty solid / balanced offensive lineup as well. So I think Washington's a pretty good club right now. I need to see them to kind of see like how good I think they are, but there's no doubt they're a very solid team right now. And give JK and his staff a lot of credit.
Yep. Yeah, Washington, they're good, but they did just beat a very beat up UCLA team. So it's like, this is another important week for UW to prove themselves a little bit. Steven or Shadi, feel free to chime in on this series.
Yeah, so I picked Washington, and you know how when an umpire misses a ball right down the middle, they call it a ball, and then the next pitch is pretty borderline, but definitely ball, and they call it a strike. Well, this is my makeup call. This is last week I didn't pick them when I usually pick the teams no one picks. And I made that bet and I had to sleep in it. I was wrong.
You just locked up. Yeah.
Yeah. I did it wrong. I did my picks on a bus to a high school baseball game instead of locked in a room. I should have been more locked in and realized that no one had picked the Huskies. But also just Will Simpson has been putting them on the map this year, so to say, whether it be getting ejected for doing nothing or just having crazy weekends at the plate. He's been really making a name for himself, and it's really cool to see.
Yep. Agreed. Shadi, go ahead.
Not only has Will Simpson been ejected for doing nothing, but he also dropped an F-bomb on live TV on the Pac-12 network last week because he's so excited about the opening win over their first win over UCLA. So I had to pick them after that. So, he actually replied to me after I tweeted out that happened, that he was just so excited about the dub. So you talked about, Rooney, about how they defeated a beat up UCLA team, but I think that's the confidence builder they needed. Whether it's a beat up UCLA team or not, you went on the road, you went to Los Angeles, and you beat a top 10 UCLA team. And when you have a new coach, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those baby steps as you go. And it started with Santa Clara at the very beginning of the season where they split. They had the ejection of both Will Simpson and JK in that game for, again, no one knows what. But there was the baby steps needed to go along the way. And I think that was another baby step last week. So now I'm really curious to watch this series and see how they react. Can you build upon what you did last week and getting that ranked win and take care of business at home against an Oregon State team that's been up and down this season? They've got a lot of young pieces. Washington's got a much older lineup, so that's another reason why I picked them in this one as well.
Yeah, and to your point, Shotty, I'm looking at you, whoever's running the University of Washington baseball Twitter handle. You stay hot. You build on what you did last weekend because you were amazing last weekend. So, Kendall, give us a quick ditty on TCU at Texas Tech.
Yeah, this is really an interesting series for Texas Tech and really TCU for that matter. I think if you look at Texas Tech, I was worried about this with them in Austin. They are a much different team away from Lubbock. I think the other thing about Texas Tech is we found out last week and they missed Brandon Beckel. He was out with a suspension for yelling at Oklahoma State's dugout after the teams were warned a couple weeks ago. And they really missed him against the Longhorns. So I think getting back home, I think they take care of business. But the one thing that really encourages them about TCU, even though they did not pick them this weekend, is, we've talked so much about Cam Brown, oh, he's got a huge arm. And, we think he could be a lot better than what he's shown. And this is a year where Cam Brown has kind of become that guy. It's every single week, it's a great start. Every single week, it's 94, 96, bump at 97 with that, that hard slider / cutter. So it's been really cool to see Cam Brown kind of turn things on this year. But I do like Texas Tech at home.
Yep. Steven, any thoughts on this one?
No, just Texas Tech playing in Lubbock's probably pretty difficult to do with the fans and all that. So I think it's just one of those weekends where we're going to see what the team's really made of. They're coming off of a pretty hard sweep against Texas. So are they going to play, defeated, or are they going to play a little bit angry with a chip on their shoulder? I think after Friday, I feel like we'll really know which direction they've chosen, whether it's the chip on the shoulder or being dejected. And I got a strong feeling it'll be the chip on the shoulder.
Oh yeah, that's what they're all about. It's like TCU, as long as they don't offend anyone, that's where Texas Tech really gets lathered up, is when you get those juices flowing. Shotty, who'd you pick on this one?
I got Texas Tech, though I will caution the Red Raiders. Braden Taylor feels like he needs it. It's about time for the breakout, and Lubbock is a great place to break out.
Great call. Yep. Yes, it's a great call. Yeah, I'll say this real quick on Braden Taylor is, I saw him great opening weekend. I saw him at Texas State a few weeks ago, and it wasn't good. The approach was just very blah. There didn't seem to be a lot of energy. So that's a great point that Lubbock is the perfect place for a hitter to break out.
Hey, Shotty, stay with us. Take us home with Maryland, Iowa. Who do you like here?
I picked Iowa in this one. Maryland has been rolling, but it takes them so much effort to win, it feels like, because their bullpen, it just continues to be an issue for them. It was the issue for them last year when they had 3 aces. Yeah. Now you got 2 aces and a developing one in Kyle McCoy, who was outstanding last week, has moved into the rotation as a Sunday guy. So if they get to Sunday even, you have a lot of confidence in what you can do. But last week, Kyle McCoy goes 8 innings, shutout, I think 6 hits. They're up 8-0, I think it was, and they only win 8-6. And they used their 2 best arms in the bullpen and still ended up being 8-6. That tells you the kind of struggles they've been having in the bullpen. So, that's why I went with Iowa playing at home. the Big Ten is pretty expansive conference. I've learned since being out here in New Jersey, it's going to take them a while to get to Iowa there. So that's like, it's not just like you're playing in conference. It's like you're playing a road series, a couple time zones away, even though it's only one. But it feels like it's a much longer trip there than you would normally feel like you have in a conference series. So, I got Iowa just because of that and the fact that Brody Brecht, he gave up football. And, since he did that, I'm going to give the love to the Hawkeyes.
I love that. You know what's interesting is I'm backtracking to Braden Taylor here for a second. Braden Taylor has more walks than strikeouts for his career, and which is hard to do. And he's still never hit for a high average. Like his averages are 324, 314, and now 258. Now he is hitting for more power this year, not more home runs, not more power overall. But anyway, very, very interesting. Kind of a statistical anomaly right there. Steven, who'd you go with, Iowa versus Maryland?
I picked Iowa just because I really like the team. I know the team well, but I do think Maryland has been playing really well as of late. And, Jason Savacool is just, ever since the first game at USF, has absolutely turned things around. Since that outing, he gave up 5 runs that outing. Since then, he's given up 5 runs the rest of the season. So I think that's something that's really cool to take note of and something to definitely keep an eye out for as the season progresses, because he's looking like the guy he was advertised to be.
Yep. Steven, as a former UMBC retriever, go Dogs, can you root for Maryland, or is that hard to do?
No, it's definitely tough to do. I don't see it happening. Iowa's easier to root for. You got Blake Guerin, Dorighi, fun name.
Dorighi, get Dorighi with it.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's a fun name to say. Coach Marty Sutherland is an absolute savage, just an awesome guy to be around.
Amazing.
Yeah. How do we not invoke Kyle Huckstorf in this? Shock is a great name category.
That is favorites.
He should. Is he on the Fabulous Rune Dogs?
No, yeah, that was a whiff by our part. Our scouting department didn't do a good job with that one.
# no research.
No, terrible. We're pretty good in the outfield, but we could have used Huckstorf. Who couldn't use him? He's amazing. I picked Iowa. That felt like the way you said it, Shotty, was right on. I didn't think of it that way, but Maryland, man, they've had to really work hard to win. It's interesting. So anyway, that said, boys, well done. Picks are in the bank. Steven and Shotty, the three of us. We have very, very high bar fight meter readings. We're great personalities. Not so good at picking weekend series. So, but like Ole Miss taught us last year, right? Like the three of us are struggling right now. Maybe this is our Ole Miss 7-14 in league play.
Well, right? I would not recommend being like 15 games behind and waiting to the last 2 weekends to make your move.
Yeah,
I wouldn't recommend that approach.
It's not the high percentage.
So, Runes, basically what you're saying is we shouldn't get an invite, but once we get there, we do some damage.
Oh yeah, don't let the shotgun spratlings get in the dance, because then it's all over. Built for the postseason.
I'm only a few perfect weeks away from the lead here, so.
Steven, you know what they say? Don't let the big donkey 47s get hot. Don't let that happen. No.
Don't. It smells really bad when that happens, so please don't.
That's a good point. If Tim Elko taught us anything, it's don't let the big donkeys get hot. So, gentlemen, well done. Well done. That was fun. Good to have our special guest this evening. Want to remind everyone, this is a great time to get a subscription to D1Baseball.com. Use the code SAVE23 at checkout. You get 20% off. That's SAVE23 at checkout. Get 20% off. If you type in Big Donkey 47 at checkout, you'll pay full freight. So type in SAVE23 instead and get 20% off. Remember, best way to watch a college baseball game. You got it on your screen. You've got a page up where you can look up player stats like we just did for Braden Taylor. You've got fall reports of the two teams that you're watching, and then you got the scores page up. So you just you kind of get your multitasking going, you get your screens going, and you're good to go. So, boys, we're going to the 9th in LSU, or we may go to we're going to be in the 9th here. So let's shut her down.
Loaded. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm behind you. Don't give it away.
Yeah, dude, I'm like way by.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Now it's bases loaded. Hit by pitch, bases loaded, 2 outs. Okay. All right, that's it. We're going to go watch the rest of the LSU-Tennessee game. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.
Later, gents.
Bye.
See ya.